Okay, so this is my video for my Teach the Class assignment, and in this video I am going to be demonstrating how to make a bit warmer. Bit warmers, you can buy them in stores, but they're really expensive, and why would you spend the money when you can make it by yourself with a lot of materials that are actually found in your house. I'm using fabric, but you can make this with an old t-shirt or fabric from a sock. And a bit warmer is really great because, especially where we live up in Canada, if you don't have a heated tack room, you get up to the barn and your bit is cold, and you really don't want to have to stand there and warm it yourself. So this is a really great way where you can warm up your bit while you're getting everything ready, and then by the time you go to put the bit in your horse's mouth, it's already warm. So I'm going to get started. Make sure that you keep note of the techniques that I'm doing as well as materials that I'm using, because there will be a small quiz on the next class, just a small 5-question quiz. I'd really like everyone, if they can, to recreate this bit warmer, but I do understand that it might be hard. Not everybody will have all the materials that they need, so I will be doing a quiz instead. So to get started, what we need is your fabric. You want to make sure that the fabric you're using isn't going to melt, because it's going to have to go in a microwave. So you're going to want fabric that is either cotton, fleece, or flannel. You don't want to use anything that's synthetic, so no polyester. And then we're going to need our filler for the bit warmer, and for that we're going to use rice. Rice is the best because it won't burn. When I was doing my research for it, there was a lot of places that were like, don't use flax because that will burn. So rice is best. You're also going to want thread, a ruler, scissors, a button, and then your bit that you're going to use it for. So bits are different sizes, and so you're going to want to make sure that your bit warmer that you're making will fit the bit. So I'm going to take my little ruler here and measure my bit, and this bit is about 5.5 inches. So I'm going to want to make sure that this bit warmer is going to fit it. So I'm going to start by taking my fabric here. This is cotton fabric, and I'm going to measure it. So what I've done is I've taken it and I've just folded it over here like this, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to take my bit and put it here. So we want the fabric to just kind of line up with the ends of the bit here. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along this line. And you want to make sure that you have fabric scissors. It's hard to cut the fabric with normal kitchen scissors. You can do it, but just to make life easier, if you have fabric scissors, I recommend using them. So now we have this fabric, and you can see it's inside out. When we're sewing something like this, when there's going to be a seam, we do want to start with it inside out. And you'll see why in a second. So now I'm going to take my thread. You're going to want quite a bit for what we're doing. And then I'm going to cut it off. And I'm going to thread my needle, which is always the hardest part. There we go. Sorry if you can hear noises. That's my friend's dog scratching at the door. And we're going to make this even so that it's tied up. And then you're going to tie your thread a couple times. Emma, your dog's going crazy. So that it looks like this on your needle. So now we're going to start. Okay, so we're going to start here, and you're going to put your needle in, and we're going to start sewing. If you don't know how to sew, it's pretty straightforward when you're just doing like this. You're just going to put your needle back and forth, in and out. I'm sure there's lots of tutorials you can find on how to do it if you don't know. Keep in mind that there is going to be rice in here, so make sure your stitches aren't too far apart or the rice could fall out of the holes. And so now we're sewing it inside out because you don't want this seam to show. We're going to flip it right side out afterwards, and then this seam that we're sewing won't be visible. And I mean, this doesn't have to be pretty, like, as long as it's functional. That's all we were really looking for. You can see the needle's going to come through, we're going to pull it, and then we're going to put it back through this end here. So what we're going to do to tie it off, because we're done with this section, is we're going to go back through, and then you're going to take your needle and you're going to go under your last stitch, just like this. And so you're going to get a loop, and all you're going to do now is just put your needle in and out of the loop a bunch of times, like this, and then pull it, and that ties off your stitch. Because now we can clip this. Okay, now we're just going to do the same thing up the other side. Perfect, so now we have like this half kind of pouch, and now we are going to flip it inside out. So now we're just going to flip it inside out, and you can see that you cannot see the thread, so it's just like a nice little seam there. And so I'm gonna check, make sure my dimensions are still right. Yep, that's good. So now we have like this little like purse thing, and what I'm going to do, we still have this this big end open, and that's going to get sewn up in a minute, but we still have to fill it with the rice. So what we're going to do here is we're going to sew a stitch up the middle so that we have like two halves or like two compartments to it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to see where the center fold for this is going to be. Because we're going to have to now sew it down the center, so like right here. And now we're going to sew it down the center. Unfortunately, we will see this stitch, but that is okay, because like I said, it just needs to be functional, not pretty. But if you're super talented and crafty, then you could probably make it pretty. Okay, so we have the stitch down the middle, which is almost done, so that we'll have our two halves, or two compartments. We'll wrap around a bit. Okay, great, so now we have these two compartments. You can see we have this half and this half because they're sewn up the side. And we're now going to take our rice, which I have in this mug, and I'm going to put it in there somehow. There we go. Oops, there goes the rice. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, there's rice going everywhere. When you do this at home, find a better method to getting your rice in the bag. So you want to make sure that
maybe a little less.
So yeah, so we're gonna be able to stitch it. You want to make sure that there's like enough rice to fill it, but like not too much, so that it can like still wrap around the bit. So there's one side done that I'm going to stitch up and then go get more rice because I spilled a lot of it. I'm gonna sew up this side of it. And I'll be right back with more rice and a funnel. So I now have a funnel to put the rice in easier, and I'm going to take my cup, and it's still going to blur, and we're going to, you know what, this funnel wasn't a good idea. So scratch that. We're going back to the original method. Alright, now I'm going to finish sewing up the last side, and then we are almost done. Okay, and there we have our 2 halves filled with rice. So what we can do now is put our bit in the middle, and this is just going to fold over like this. And that's it. Now, you can leave it like this if you want, or if you want to get fancy, you can get Velcro and Velcro it together. But what I'm going to do, because I don't have Velcro, is something else. And this is what I need a button for. There it is. So I have my button. And I'm just going to take this fabric, and I'm just going to measure a piece that will go all the way around the edge. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to cut a strip all the way down. Doesn't matter how, probably like a little bit thicker, but doesn't really matter. And so now these pieces big enough to wrap around. It is. So we have this strip of fabric like this, and what we're going to do with it is we're going to sew the button onto one side of it. Take our button, and we're going to sew it to half. So when you sew your button, you're going to take your needle, stick it up so it goes to the first hole of the button, and back through. And you're basically just going to go back and forth until it's on there nice and tight. And for tying off the button, we're just doing the same thing. We're going underneath all of our stitches. And bring it around. And that. Okay, so we now have this piece of fabric with a button on it, and all we're going to do is wrap it around this, see where it this fabric lines up with there. So like right there, we're going to need to make a slit. Bend it. And there we have our finished bit warmer, which will actually, there we go. And there we have our finished bit warmer. All stuck on there. And now we're going to go test it out. Okay, so now we have this bit warmer and we're going to test it out. We're going to put it in the microwave for 60 seconds. And let it heat up, and hopefully it doesn't explode. So it is nice and hot now. So I'm going to go, I want my bit nice and cold for this test. So it is pretty cold. So pretty nice. We can really test it out. It smells like rice. Okay. And it is now in there warming up, and we'll see how long this holds its heat. Okay, so I am back home now. It's been about 5-10 minutes after I put it in the microwave and wrapped around the bit. The bit warmer itself is still warm, like there's still a lot of heat in it. So I'm going to take it off and see how warm my bit is. I did button. Wow, okay, and so the bit's actually really warm. Like, it's not hot, but it's like the perfect amount of warmth that you would want your bit to be.